So in order to start capturing video, what I'm going to do is just locate my main camera, and that's going to be right here. And so you'll see I've already positioned it a little bit above the ground, and that's because I want to, when I'm capturing these, I want to kind of put myself in the world. And so, if I captured it from way up here, it would look like maybe I'm kind of floating, and that could be an effect I wanted, or, I could potentially kind of animate it forward or something. But for now, I'm just gonna actually put it back down here on the ground and make it seem like I'm the person kind of in the scene, I guess you could say. And then we'll choose a couple interesting points and start rendering out. I'm going to do video because we have some dynamic elements like the cloth and the particles here. So maybe I can back up a little bit, something like that. Looks pretty good. And I'm just kind of finding an average height here above it. And so you'll notice this is basically just the default camera. I have added this post-processing layer. This is part of the V2 post-processing stack, and that gives us some stuff like the ambient occlusion, and then another object in the scene is giving us the color grading and bloom. But in order to start capturing these, I'm just going to add a component, which we're calling VR Capture. And so this is a built-in script for that VR Panorama package, and you can see that right here. One of the things that I really like about this is that there's a ton of different options. So basically, by default, we're going to be in animation capture, but you can also do still image, or you can render it to a render texture. And so this would be if you had maybe some interesting effects going and you wanted to kind of render that to a sphere at runtime. That would be what that render texture is used for. But for now, we're just going to keep it at this animation capture. And we're also going to do the equidistant mono option here. You can see there's a couple other ones for like a flat video capture if I was just looking at a single frame, and then some equidistant stereo and side by side as well. We are going to want to stay at 360, but it does also allow the option for 180. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just output the animation as a sequence of JPEGs, but then also it's going to output it as a video and then encode it with this H.264 video after I've captured it. And so most of these settings for what I want are actually, the default settings that I do want. The one thing I want to change is I'm actually going to bump this up. Instead of being 2K, which we have here, I'm just going to bump this up to 4K. And you can see that this already changes right there. And again, the other nice options here is that we have these presets for Facebook or YouTube 8K, and a couple other variety of things there. I'm just going to leave all of these by default. You'll see that I'm basically recording a 3-second video. But for the effects I have, that's actually going to be enough. And the last thing I want to say about kind of recording these videos, and then I'll go ahead and show you how it works, is that a big thing is this project was kind of made in VR for VR, but this VR Panorama doesn't really behave and work the way you would want it if you have VR enabled. And so that took me a little bit longer to debug than I would have liked, but disabling VR is an important part of capturing this panoramic video, because you want that camera to kind of be stable in a default position here. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up my player settings and disable virtual reality here under the XR settings right there. And now, because I have my main camera, it's set up with all these on by default, I have the animation capture. I can just go ahead and hit the play button, and now we'll actually see a little estimated time of how long it's going to take to render. And you can see in the scene here that it's basically spawning a bunch of different cameras to look at these angles and then stitch them together for this one kind of elongated video. And that's what we'll be wrapping around a sphere. All right, so I'm trying to look at any questions, but you can see here what happens is, since I have that encode setting on, it renders out all these sequences in the JPEG format, and then it goes ahead and does this encoding for me automatically. And so my output will be a video file, and I can go ahead and open that once this finishes and kind of show you what it looks like. Now, it's not going to be fully kind of digestible in its current format. And so you'll see when we bring it into Unity and how we utilize it later, how it's really going to work here. All right, so here's my sequences, and if I just scroll down to the bottom, we have this VR sequence 360. I'm just going to double click this, and so here's what we have. So you can see, again, it's kind of just a short clip, but you can see the flags moving around a little bit. You can see that fire at the end, but it does look a bit condensed here. And it's not really kind of a nice video to look at per se. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take this video and import it into my project and then go and capture other viewports and then put those in my project as well. And then we can sequence those together a little later. So for now, I'm just going to do Control-C to copy. And down here, I'm going to just open this video folder here like that. And we'll copy this one in. And I'm going to rename this one to be VR sequence 1, like that. All right, so now I'm just going to click back, and it's going to go ahead and do the import settings on that video that I have here. One thing to keep in mind when capturing multiple videos is the current setup right now actually goes ahead and overwrites what you have here. So it's saving to the folder VR sequences, and it's going to be named the same thing. So if you want to save that, you need to make sure to grab it before you basically do another render. So someone asked, what is the highest resolution that plays well on mobile VR? I think that's a little bit tricky. I guess I've definitely seen some 4K video, and I know people are pushing 8K, but I'm not sure if I've personally seen any 8K. For me, with just VR in general, it's all about really testing it on your desired platform and device. So you might be able to get away with 8K on high end, but on mobile, you might have to resort to like 4K or 2K. One of the things that the Unity video player supports is that you can actually stream videos. So depending on the size of your video, if you don't want to ship like a large, say, APK on Android, you could potentially host that elsewhere and then stream that in to your application. And depending on your kind of internet quality and things like that, you might be able to get some higher quality streams by inputting that into your application. But again, it kind of depends on what platform. I know that like Daydream specifically has a Unity plugin for playing videos, and so some of those will support some higher resolutions. What formats can you stream? Basically, you kind of provide a URL to the video, and so I believe it supports, I want to say, like MP4s and things like that. I will say there should be some Unity documentation about the new video player. It is a little bit newer, but it's fairly robust. And one of the things we really focused on was making it support these 360 sequences and videos that we're seeing a lot more recently.